Warning: the Not Real Art podcast is intended for creative audiences only. The Not Real Art podcast celebrates creativity and creative culture worldwide. It contains material that is fresh, fun, and inspiring and is not suitable for boring old art snobs. Now, let's get started and enjoy the show.
Greetings and salutations, my creative brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Not Real Art podcast, where we celebrate creative culture and the artists who make it. I'm your host, Sourdough, coming to you from Crew West Studio in Los Angeles. Man, do we have a cool program for you all today. I have no doubt you will learn, grow, and be inspired by today's show. Before we get into our main event, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like this episode and subscribe. Your likes and follows help ensure you won't miss any of our new shows, and it makes the algorithm gods happy, which helps us. So thanks for that. Also, be sure to visit our website, notrealart.com. Sign up for our newsletter to keep your finger on the pulse of everything we're doing here at Not Real Art for artists and art lovers. A lot of great stuff there. On the website, you'll get free educational videos. You can sign up for our artist grant for the chance to receive $2,000. You can buy affordable original and contemporary art through our partnership with Sugar Press. And you can become a supporter through Patreon if you want. So be sure to check out our website today for all the good, healthy stuff we got for you. Now, like I was saying, you're going to love today's episode. But first, I want to shout out to my good friend Erin Yoshi for holding it down in March during International Women's Month here at the Not Real Art Podcast. She did an incredible job celebrating the power of women. I asked her to do a takeover of the show and interview some of her favorite women in the arts. And she did an incredible job talking to these amazing women. And I'll tell you what, if you didn't hear those interviews, you got to go back and listen to Erin Yoshi's episodes from the month of March. She took over. She raised the bar. She just did a fantastic job. And I'm so grateful for her love and energy that she put into this. She definitely raised the bar and did a phenomenal job here. And I hope she comes back. I want her to do more. But Erin, you rock. Thank you so much for killing it in March, celebrating the power of women. Okay, here's what I got for you today. Dolby Laboratories. Some of you remember the old button on the cassette deck for the noise reduction. You'd hit that button and your music sounded better, all because of Dolby. Well, Dolby, of course, has grown up and they are a powerhouse organization now in entertainment in terms of making our entertainment experiences richer and better and more enjoyable, more memorable. Using technology to improve not just music, but movies and gaming. And I hear that they're now in the podcasting space. So it's pretty incredible what Dolby is doing, specifically around their Atmos technology. And so today I have Ellis Reid on the show to talk about Atmos, to talk about all the cool stuff Dolby is doing. And without further ado, let's get into it and hear from the one and only Ellis Reid. Ellis Reid, welcome to the Not Real Art podcast.
Hey, Scott. Thanks very much, man. It's great to be here with you.
Man, I'm so grateful that you came through. I mean, you're a busy man. You've been at Dolby Labs now for how many years?
9 years. 9 years. It's been pretty cool, especially now, right? Where there's so much going on right now that, and even in the pandemic, it's only gotten faster, right? So, I mean, particularly as people are home, right? They're spending more time with, entertainment, right? They want better quality entertainment. So things are really just picking up. I mean, at the beginning, creatives were having a little bit of trouble. I mean, because everybody was shut. You couldn't go into a studio. A lot of that had slowed down. But people are starting to get remote workflows, figuring out how to get their houses set up. Right. I mean, we both are sitting here, we're getting our mics, we're getting our different cameras, we're getting it all together so we can actually do this type of thing. And it's made it a great time. It was super, super time to be at Dolby. So I've been really happy.
Well, and I tell you what, I mean, Dolby is one of those like brands, at least for me. Right. I mean, it just always spoke to innovation. It spoke to, a better entertainment experience. I mean, I think, maybe we all just remember, the roots of it all, which is like, oh, noise cancellation. Noise cancellation? Oh, yeah.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's super exciting. Yeah. I mean, it was great in the time, but you sit back and you think about it. And quite frankly, right, we've done studies and almost everybody knows the name, right? They hear Dolby and they go, oh, yeah, I know. I've heard of them. Then they're like, okay, well, what do we do? And unaided, what we do doesn't really flow off. They're like, maybe, did you do speakers? I think it's something with speakers. I remember that. And I'm like, no, we don't do speakers. Actually, we have small speaker division, but what we do is we make entertainment look and sound better. And actually, when I say the look part, that usually blows a lot of people away. They're like, but I thought Dolby was pure sound, and it hasn't been. So that's what's been exciting. Right. So Dolby Vision is our imaging technology. And, I'll tell you a story. It's really funny. Having been an engineer, right, since coming out of MIT, we won't say how long ago, long time ago, Yeah.
Yeah. You were a boy genius, right? You graduated at MIT at 12, didn't you? At 12?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It was 12. That's what it was. Yeah. It had nothing to do with where I am now, but my mom never knew what I was doing. And finally I'm, home this last time and I'm like, I was going to get her, you need a new TV. She's got a new place. And said, I'm going to get you a new TV. And she's like, no. I'm like, don't trust me. It really going to look better. And she's going, don't buy me the TV. She's 84, right? I'm like, don't buy the TV. I don't need it. So I said, forget it, Mom. I work for Dolby. I'm going to go buy you a TV. Show up, put the TV in, sit it down. And then she looks at it and she goes, oh, that really does look a lot better. I'm like, thank you. That's what I do for a living, right?
That MIT education did pay off. I have a much better TV.
It paid off. I got a much better TV. So yeah, so that's finally she's figured out after how many decades that has been what I do. So and it does, and things do look better in high dynamic range. In fact, if you don't have, I'm going to come to your place. If
that was my next thing. I was like, you know what, Ellis, I needed. It turns out I need a new TV too, man.
Yeah, we're gonna come get you set up in your house, man. Yeah,
Talk about that a little bit, though, in terms of, what Dolby does in terms of the visual, because, we'll get to the audio, but like you just sort of said it, people automatically sort of think about Dolby vis-a-vis audio, but like, what are some of the amazing tech that helps the visual?
So Dolby's been doing stuff in imaging for a while, but what's been Dolby Vision. So our scientists were sitting back trying to think, how do you take the screen in the picture and what's the next thing you can do? And everybody was focusing on going to 4K, right? So more resolution, a lot more pixels. It's a finer picture, but nobody was really touching the fact that the screens are so much brighter and there's so much more contrast in the broadcast world. And even in the motion picture, but particularly the broadcast world, they set the levels on the TVs based on TVs, old tube TVs, right? And no one's bought a tube TV in a decade, right? So all of the new TVs, the LCDs, the LEDs particularly, have this capability of going really bright and actually, really dark. So you can get this contrast, but all of the movies are being squashed down, right? All the creators are squashing things down so that it would fit into this narrow space. And so now what we're saying is, well, let's find a way to bring that out. And our scientists sat down and came up with a way of getting the creatives to create it in a way that takes full advantage of those, what TVs can do today. So in terms of being very bright and very dark at the same time. So if you've ever seen a scene that's like a bright sun and all the darks are like, they're not dark, that's because it's washed out because you only have so much dynamic range to work on. So this way now you can do this and, the creatives and actually, frankly, it looks almost 3D because it's more like what your eyes see. You can see the brights, you can see the darks at the same time. And, we did some studies up front, to figure out what the human eye can cover. So the unit of brightness is a nit. Right. So,
yeah. Nits.
Nits. Right. Yeah.
I heard all about
candelas per meter. Right. Yeah. I've got a lot of, nits, candelas per meter squared, but nits. Right. And so 10,000 nits is about as bright as the eye can see. But, if you enter like a movie theater, that'll go down to like 0.01 nit. Right. So you've got all of this dynamic range and the movie cameras, so they capture it. It just wasn't being transmitted. And it wasn't in the post part it was being lost. So Dolby Vision allows the post production to maintain that, right? Keep that in creative intent, pass it all the way through. And then as TVs get better, the TVs just actually take advantage of it. So, and it just really does, right? You see it side by side and you're like, oh, that TV is so much brighter. There's so much more color and it just looks more lifelike. So Dolby was, really one of, but yes, so we are going to talk about getting out to your place and getting you a new TV set up and it's going to have to have Dolby Vision in it.
Okay, but I'm still not hearing the words that I was hoping to hear, the words employee discount. But we'll talk about that later. Maybe that's
we'll discuss that one.
Friends and family discount. Okay, we'll talk about that offline. We don't necessarily want anybody to hear this. Offline.
That out, yeah.
Well, super cool, man. I mean, it's like Dolby has such a reputation, such a legendary organization. That's just some of the new tech that you guys have been getting into over the last, I guess, 10, 15 years or so. And, obviously your roots are in audio and all the amazing stuff that Dolby has been doing to make my entertainment experience better and everybody's entertainment experience better. Kind of, forgive the analogy, but it's kind of like, and I don't know this phrase, ingredient branding, right? It's like if I see that Dolby brand on that TV, I know it's better. If I see that, it's like, oh, this was made with Hershey's chocolate chips. Okay, this cookie's way better. You know what I mean?
I got to stop you for a second because we're trying to get away from the ingredient part, right? Because it's about the experience. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not Dolby's an ingredient brand, but I mean, my job now is really to have it and get creatives to think about an experience, right? I mean, because you don't fall in love with the ingredients in your TV. You fall in love with the content on your TV, right? You fall in love with that experience, right? So if it's sports, you follow the team and you want that, the team, when you're watching it, you want to see as good as possible. That's what you care about. And so we care about the experience. And some of the really fun stuff has been like we did an experience center in Soho in New York. And people would walk in and they would see in front of them, right? They'd see it and hear it. There'd these be vivid colors and videos and sounds flying around them. And they were like, oh, wow, this is a great experience. And that's really what we're trying to get across is we want people to ask for that experience. Right. So, we want people to want the idea of, when you're going to watch a movie, that you want the experience of it being really well to pull you in because the colors and everything are natural and help suspend that disbelief and really get that artist intent across. And that's what we want is you to think of us as an experience. Right.
Well, that's the emotion part, isn't it? I mean, that's the emotion part, right? Like that's that's the memory part. It's like, oh yeah, man, I remember that movie. That experience was incredible. I was there. It moved me, right?
Yeah, no, and that's what it is. And that's why, if you take Dolby Vision, right, which is these brighter brights and really more contrast. So it's not just about making things brighter, but it's actually allowing that post producer and the creative to take advantage of this full volume of color, right? And I won't get into the pictures about, what color volume is, but as things get brighter, colors are more intense, right? And that's what you've been losing, right? You've been losing these vivid, intense colors on the top end, right? I remember one of the first, views I saw it was like one of the Mad Max movies. I forget which one. And, in there's this, the cars running, there's flames are shooting, and you could finally get the flames the right color, right? You could see the oranges, and that's it. But then you throw the audio side, right? And Dolby Atmos allows, it's a 3D audio. And it's really immersive, and it's about being able to place sounds around you. In
like a 3D space kind of a thing?
Yeah, totally in 3D space. So cool. Above you, behind you, around you. And then doing that, and so I've got a soundbar set up here with, we call it, so my soundbar is a 5-1-2, right? So it's, front, right, left, center, rear surround, left surround. And then there's actually upward firing speakers that bring the sound from above. And Dolby Atmos allows you to place those sounds. Well, not you, but allows the creative to place the sounds where they want them. And in movies, that means like if there's a rocket shooting overhead, you can bring that rocket over. You can pan the sound over and place it in space. So you're not just like aiming for the speaker setup, you're placing it in space. And so you on the playback side, it determines what has to happen. So people get that realistic experience. And so if you imagine you got these brighter brights, more contrast, and then you got the sounds that are kind of moving around you. That's a theater experience, right? That's what you really want to have in your home. And so we've been doing it with, obviously movies, right? So in cinemas, Dolby cinemas are great, but in the homes, right? So like I mentioned, so I've got a Dolby Vision TV, and when did I ever drink the Kool-Aid? And Dolby Atmos setup, soundbar, and it just and frankly, when we started, we were all in the high end, and now the setups are becoming way more accessible. I think my soundbar, my Dolby Vision soundbar, I got it, Black Friday for like $300.
Right.
TV was like 500.
Very affordable.
Yeah, super affordable. And so now we get this experience. And so like I'll look for these experiences, right? So Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Disney Plus, all have places where you can get a Vision and Atmos experience. So that's what I look for, right? So I can actually take full advantage of my TV to get that and sound. But what's also cool on the Atmos side, and I'm glad we're chatting. Whether stop me if I start to run too much.
Oh no, man, this is great stuff. I know my audience is eating it up, so let's hear all about it.
I mean, because what's actually been really cool. So we started in cinema, and there were Dolby cinemas, and you can catch one. Well, when they open back up, you will be able to catch one. Then we went into the home. And that was for film and TV. So we were doing that, and that kind of makes sense, right? You can kind of picture sounds because you got an eye visual, right? So you see the sounds, right? You got the eyes are coming around, knows where sound is, and your ears place it there. But we've actually had musicians saying, well, could we do anything with music that way? And this would probably be something really useful in music. So so we started to work with musicians and other creatives in that space, mixers, sound designers, and created Dolby Atmos music. And that's, super exciting as well, because that's not quite as much about where you place the sounds, but it's the same concept, but by spreading the sounds out, right? So all of a sudden you start to hear things that you would never have heard before, because instead of pressing everything down into stereo, right now you have the ability to pull this out into all these different speakers. And you can bring things above you and around, behind you, but by pulling it out further from each other, the sounds don't have to have as much EQ, right? So you get more fidelity, you start to hear stuff you didn't hear before. And that's been so exciting, right?
So would it be accurate to say that Atmos music, if I'm the listener, like I guess the effect or the sensation is that maybe I'm in the room with the band?
Yeah,
I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and it's up to the creative how they deal, and everybody does it differently. I was really excited. Black History Month, we worked with some guys who had a Grammy nominated song, "Lift Every Voice and Sing," and it was a great a cappella version. And as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this would be amazing, because it's just basically two guys, and so we heard it. Worked with them, and once you were able to spread it out, in fact, talking to the mixer, right, he even talked about that. He says, I was able to pull this out and to really bring you into the song, right, and really put you in the middle of it, and it gets that much more emotional heft when delivered that way. Marvin Gaye, one of the first songs I heard was "What's Going On" in that. And if you remember that song, right, they got the guys, talking smack in the beginning. That actually turns out to be guys from the Detroit Lions at the time, but you can pull them up and around you, so you really feel like, here I am in the studio with a bunch of guys just talking, and then the music comes in, and by spreading it out, you feel like you're there. Everything's clearer. In the mastering process, you don't have to put as much EQ in to like dampen stuff down, so you really get what's everything that's there. So that's going really well. And the number of people that have come, day and date for the release in stereo and in Dolby Atmos music has really started to grow. So, Amazon Music does it. Their only playback is on their Echo Studio, but that's, fantastic. And I got to be careful because I got one right here next to me. That's what my bedroom sound TV is hooked up to that. And it sounds, great when I'm doing that. So,
well, it sounds like there's a hell of a lot of remastering work to be done, huh?
Well, and that's the thing. It's really remixing, right? Because you're going to take it, and now you got these tools to work with, and where we can, we work with the artists, to do it. But obviously, working on Marvin Gaye song, or Miles Davis, that kind of blew these. But these are greats that weren't here, but you're still remixing it. So you're taking the stems, and then you're finding a way to take advantage of the space. And really putting stuff out in the space. So,
yeah, man. So Atmos music now, where can people hear this now? Is it on Spotify? Is it on Tidal? Is it on where?
So the two services that support it in the U.S. right now, U.S. and around the world so it's Amazon Music, right? And then on Tidal, right? So the Tidal music service, the two services supporting it now. Obviously, we're talking to other services, but those are the two today that support it. And then in terms of devices, well, God, there's hundreds of millions of devices that support that. So I've got, a Samsung, and there's Dolby Atmos because playback is on here, on iPhones, iPads, Macs. So the number of places where you can actually, if you can get it, you can actually experience it, are really just, it's amazing. It's, like I said, it's hundreds of millions at this point of devices. And I think that's why it's going to be here to stay. Because you and I have been around around the block a couple times. I mean, over the years, there's been things like quadraphonic sound and all sorts of stuff that just never really took off. But that was only because only a few audiophiles could actually do anything with it. Now everyone can play with these tools. So,
So for people out there like scratching their heads, because this is obviously super sophisticated stuff, and it's just now. I say just now. I guess you guys have been in the market with Atmos music for a couple of years anyway.
Of years, yeah. It's easy,
yeah. So, but I mean, I gotta imagine that this tech is 10, 15 years in the making. I mean, like when did when who was the guy in the shower that came up with the idea 15 years ago? You know what I mean?
I was funny. I was talking to my guys the other day, and the idea is probably 8 years old, right? And in fact, the guys I was talking to, they started on the Dolby Atmos side. They started playing with that 8-10 years ago. Same thing with Dolby Vision. It's been in the making for that long, but a lot of it is just really figuring out how to do it. And like with Dolby Atmos, it started off as there was stereo. Right. And, and then we moved into surround sound. And then the question was, well, where do you go? And surround sound, first it was 5.1, right? So a subwoofer and surrounds. And then it's like, well, let's go to 7.1. And, so we just added a few more speakers around you. In fact, in Japan, they had a thing that was like 22.2, right? Where they were lining up. So yeah, I'm not making this up, right? Just 22.2.
22.2.
Where you like their twos. And it's like, okay, do you just keep adding on? Like you go 9.1, do you just keep adding on? And that's actually not going to work, right? Very few of us can come into their house, and the concept of putting 22 speakers in the house, that's like a no-brainer, right? That's just so not going to happen. But with Dolby Atmos, they started to go, well, what if we divorce, right, how the music is played back from how it's created, and then we'll let the technology place it, right? We'll let the technology place the sounds. And they started working on that, and then wanting to be able to place the sounds all around you, and they started to building up from that. So it took a while as they got to that point, because you do have to send information, right? Metadata is created with it, and that gets sent along with the signals for playback, right? So a Dolby Atmos signal has this metadata in it, and the playback device reads it and says, okay, here's where it needs to put it. And what's actually cool with that metadata is it can actually even be stereo. It can even play back in a stereo world. So I'm wearing headphones, and I pointed to like this Samsung phone. It has the ability to read the metadata and then actually create a binaural sound. So it's just two speakers, right? But it can spread the sound out and give you that same feeling of being in a 3D space on the headphones.
Man, I'll tell you what. I mean, that's epic. I mean, the fact that I can enjoy this in so many different formats. Maybe that's not the right word, but I can enjoy it on my head, on my earbuds, as well as my home speakers, as well as my Amazon, smart speaker, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah. So headphones were huge, right? Being able to support headphones is really important, and in fact, in our tools, we get it so the designers can actually design with headphones. Right. So you actually don't need to have the setup in your home. You could really actually do that work on headphones. Yeah, I think before you release it, you're going to certainly want to go into a professional room and hear it on the others, but you can do your work on headphones. And that itself is a game changer, right?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, wow. I mean, like so many of the hottest albums today are being made in people's bedrooms, right? And the idea that those same producers can design their sound using Atmos and their headphones or their earbuds, I mean, that sounds like a game changer to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's super huge, and actually, when you think about how most of us listen to music nowadays, yeah, I mean, I've got like 4 different sound systems running around here, maybe 5, I forget, but most people don't, and most of the people are also in the situation where they're listening on their phone, they're listening on some other, and they've got earbuds in, so being able to support playback on that way is huge, right? So as you start to look at all the places where people are, that's why I said I do believe this is going to happen because you can listen on headphones. And actually, we just announced at South by Southwest. God, was that just a week ago? Yeah, just a week ago that the first car with Dolby Atmos sound built into it is going to roll off. So Lucid Motors, they're all electric cars. The first one where they've designed in a Dolby Atmos system in their car. So
That's hot.
yeah, no, I think it'll be really cool because now you're in the car and you have this. I mean, and the car is one of these environments where I really think it'll be a great experience because, people are in their car, they're going to listen to music, they're going to listen to
Your car becomes a theater then. I mean, it's a theater, right? And then you're designing the sounds in that space. It's like incredible.
Yeah, so using the tools we have to bring it into the car. And, for me, I'm excited about sports because sports, so, Notre Dame had been doing their home games in Dolby Atmos. We've had, some of the Olympics have been broadcast that way. And so some people who had the right setup, could actually experience it that way. And we've been doing sports in the UK with BT Sport and Sky Sport for, 4 years now. So all English champion leagues and English Premier League games broadcast by them, are in Dolby Atmos. And actually, in the pandemic, one thing that was really cool, and this was an interesting collaboration. So they took the fans out of the stadium, and anyone who's seen an English, football match know that the fans and the noise are a big chunk of the experience, right? People, they have cheers that every team knows, and heck, they've had to separate home and away for that, but everyone's really into it. And so when they came back and there was no fans, it really took a lot of away. So we talked to them, I don't know, I think they approached us and like, how do we fix this and how do we do it? And they actually put crowd sounds in. So that, they actually, for the broadcast, they put
it was a huge hole, right? It was
a
huge hole.
Yeah. They plugged the hole. And what I get so excited, it makes me laugh is, right. So EA Sports, right, who's been doing, right, the soccer games for, football games forever, right, has been collecting sounds from football games.
Right.
And so EA Sports is like, well, we've got the sounds, right? So this guy worked with Dolby and they put the sounds back in. And by and large, the fans you'd almost even expect them to be somewhat dismissive of it, but they were excited, right? That they're like, most of the comments were positive, going, this really helped the experience.
It felt right, or righter. You know what I mean? More legit. That's very cool, man.
Yeah, no, that's been, I've seen it in different sports, American football, actually even in golf, surprisingly enough. It was some of the tests we've done in golf have been, you'd be surprised that you don't think golf is the sort of thing that I'm
scratching my head right now going, what the fuck? Like, I don't.
But the ability to bring it in and where you can start to hear the sounds of on the course, and maybe there's a bird in the background and you can hear the crowd, and it kind of places everything. It really actually upped the experience. It was surprising to me that it was a really a good experience. So.
Well, I mean, excuse the, oversimplistic, metaphor or whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, right, like anything's going to be better. Like if you're an artist and you've got more colors to work with, it's just going to be a better in product, whatever medium, whatever thing you're talking about. And like what Atmos has done or is doing is adding so much more colorway to the palette, of sound design or whatever. Right. I mean, for the end user like me, the experience is going to be richer and more fulfilling and more fulfilling.
Yeah. And I just say, I'm going to go back to, it's the experience. And I'd say this, I mean, for my job, what I'm looking at is how do I get creators to come on board, right? You want creators because in the end of the day, Dolby is unique in that we work with the creatives, we work with the service providers that deliver stuff across the networks, and then we work with the playback devices. And it doesn't work if you don't have all three pieces in that chain. So right now we're looking at bringing the creatives on board, showing them the tools, And because, I mean, people like that, then these creatives start to come up with new ways of using things that we hadn't thought of, and nor should we, right? Because we're just giving them a way to express their creative intent.
Yeah, you're a tool maker. You let them figure out how to use the tools.
Yeah, and and obviously we give some examples and we bring people to the fore, and so yeah, we do lots of talks with people that have done really great stuff using our technology. But in the end, it comes down to the creative. And like I've got a project that I'm working on right now that I'm pretty excited, coming to fore, right? So the Oakland Museum, California, is going to do an exhibition on Afrofuturism, and in that exhibition, there was an artist, right, Nicole Mitchell, who's wanted to do this immersive 3D soundscape. Right, it's all about peace. It's going to work with an art piece around the Black science fiction writer Octavia Butler, very famous, very important figure. But she wanted this to be, she didn't just want to create a piece and you just play it over and over again. So she worked with our guys to create this thing that's actually regenerative, right? So it actually recreates itself and goes in and moves stuff around all through there. And so you can come back in again and again. You're going to hear something different. And
this is so cool, man. When does this exhibit open? Like, what?
Well,
when
unfortunately, it won't open until I think probably June. And you'll have to check it out. But I mean, for me, that was literally just on the phone with them last week, and I was explaining about how this is. I mean, it's really going to be recreating itself on the fly, and that's something we would never have thought about. I mean, is that going to sell, millions of albums? No, but it's the type of thing that you're going to see. People are going to come up with more and more uses for this. And, as I said, I'm, really excited to see that, and doing everything we can to bring creatives on board. Right. So Dolby, we certainly also work with youth, trying to make sure that they're excited about that, trying to put some of the tools in people's hands. So, so they start out early creating with this.
Well, speaking of youth, gaming. I mean, I'm not a gamer at all. I'm old enough to admit that, I had the original Atari. I had the original Intellivision. I was a mad Pong player. Okay. I might have killed on Space Invaders. But a modern day gamer, I mean, what these kids are playing with now, man, is just like, now it's professional sports leagues, or they're making millions of dollars playing these incredible video games. God bless you.
I know. I literally just watched an example of one with Blizzard. Did an example of one not too long ago of, bringing Dolby technology to one of these competitions. And so that was exciting. And, there's a long way to go to get that through. But yes, Dolby Atmos is in games, and that's been for the games that are there, that are coming on board, and they're getting more for the first person shooter, which I've never been first person shooter person, but because now imagine, right, you're in a first person shooter game and you can actually tell if the sound's from behind you or in front of you or to the side of you. It helps reaction times, right? So it gives an advantage. So I think, so we know the game companies want to do things. So we're, there's Xbox, supports Dolby Atmos. We're starting to see it in more and more places. So I think gaming's going to open up. Dolby Vision makes the colors brighter, and so you're starting to see that play as well. So yeah, gaming is the next big item. So, and we're seeing a lot more coming in gaming. Never, I mean, it's funny, you kind of mentioned that. Yeah, my first video game was Pong. I don't really think Dolby Atmos Vision and Dolby Atmos are going to really improve that old classic game of Pong.
Which is amazing to hear to me, because I mean, having been a boy genius graduating MIT at 12, I know you're far younger than me. So like, that's kind of incredible. Clearly you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's killer. So let's check off the boxes here. We've got Atmos in movies, been there for a minute. Atmos in music, been there, going on a minute. Getting into gaming, fairly new.
Yep, gaming. Yep,
right. Okay,
gaming,
but it's exciting. It's green pasture, strawberry fields forever and whatnot. And that's good. But, Ellis, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound rude here, but I only care about one thing, my friend. I only care about me. And I'm a podcaster, okay? I'm a podcaster, so I care about podcasting. When is Dolby going to help me make my podcast better? Now, listen, I know it's hard to believe that this podcast could get any better than it already is. I know people are out there scratching their heads going like, Scott, what are you talking about, man? Like this show's super dope. Yes, it is, people. Yes, it is. But we can always up our game. And in the podcasting game, there's so many opportunities for new tech and new platforms and just new creative. So it's Dolby's position now, Ellis, about podcasting. Do you guys have plans to get into podcasting?
Well, I'll say this. There's already podcasts today being done in Dolby Atmos, right? So Q Code has invested in, a Dolby Atmos studio, right? So they've got one left-right game, right, which is already in Dolby Atmos. There's another MyQ's one, I think out of Korea that does it. There's a company in India, so there are already people doing podcasts in Dolby Atmos. And as we look at the market, and, because everything, just like music took a while to come, right? Podcasts will come. We know that there's, particularly when you get into the scripted fiction, the audio fiction, there's clearly a place where that can fit. I had a great talk the other day with one of the guys who'd been doing, some sound design for Q Code, and he kind of walked through how he did it. It was interesting. He said the headphones actually made a big difference for him being able to do the work in headphones, because a lot of people consume his podcast in headphones. And so I think it's coming. I think as you start to look, and mind you, just starting to look at this. So in fact, it was great for you and I to talk, because you can help me learn about podcasts. Because as you start to look at it, getting people to understand that it's just another way of telling a story. It's another tool, and there is, particularly in audio fiction, a real advantage of being able to place sounds where you want them, and you can tell a story that way. Well, so I'll come back and I'm going to bring it a little bit away from podcasts and kind of go back in. So Alfonso Cuarón did this movie Roma, and Roma was just an amazing use of Dolby Atmos, because there was no real soundtrack, right? So it wasn't like there was a soundtrack there, but there was a soundtrack. And he placed sounds around you in the room. And he used like real sounds to create that. So there might be, like, you could see like a radio that would be like behind the character. And so they would place the sound. So if you were able to hear it, it was kind of coming behind you. So it kind of naturally just played into there. And he was really meticulous in how he placed sounds and did that to help tell the story, right? Because you could place people and you could do things. And so that's, to me, we're going to see some of the people coming out of those worlds are going to come and look at podcasts as it's coming, right? So there's, let's face it, Scott, this world podcasting is blowing up, right? And there's going to be a lot of people coming in board, who have this experience in doing, immersive mixes and doing immersive storytelling from the big screen that are going to start to come this way. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, I hope including you, that are going to see it as an advantage and start to go, all right, how do I do this? And what are the tools that I need to have? So we're working on making sure, like I said, we work end to end, that, the right tools are there and people can get the right education, so that the creatives are going to start going, all right, well, if I could tell my story a little bit differently, because you really do have to tell your story differently, right? You can't have to find new art, ways of making a story move. And like, if you're watching a show, like Transformers was one that, was a Dolby Atmos one, and there's explosions and everything's going on. Well, your eyes have ability to separate stuff out. You can't do that on a podcast, an audio fiction, because it's just a bunch of noise, right? You have no way of separating it out. So finding tools and ways to convey that emotion, but not just making it a big bunch of sounds, is going to be what people are going to learn as they go through and get that. So
what about AR and VR? There's so many cool, artists are starting to embrace AR and VR for that immersive visual art experience, maybe even, bordering on performance art or whatever. This area of the arts, visual arts, is kind of exploding in many exciting ways. Feels like Atmos could really add a level of depth and texture to that experience as well.
And I think it will. We haven't been as pressed into bringing to market anything in that area. Because to be quite honest, AR and VR are still kind of in early days.
Sure, niche. Right? Yeah, very niche. Yeah.
They're still really in early days. And to be quite honest, they're still, are we doing storytelling with AR, or is it really, really good for industrial application where you're helping somebody train. So those are the sorts of things that have to get sorted out. And so to really start to figure out how's this going to come to market, I have absolutely no doubt that it will. I mean, I'm scared that one day that my live concerts, which I'm dying to have come back, will have that. And, I will, I don't know if you ever watch Portlandia, they have an episode of two people who, they weren't going to go, right? You get the sounds and you had an AR, VR experience sitting there. I hope we don't get to that point, because I still am going to want to be able to go. I'm still going to want to be able to show up at some maybe major festival in the desert and see my buddies and get that actual real experience.
Festival, let's see, a festival in the desert. Huh. I don't think I've ever. No, I've heard of those.
Yeah. I mean, they have them. They have them.
Yeah. There's a couple out there. I forget what they're called though. But
I'm looking. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing those experiences to come back, and hopefully I'll be there with you again, and we'll see. By the way, I ran across a picture of the two of us from the last time, but that's another story altogether.
From the edges of reality, yes,
of reality, yeah. But no, so
that's for the adults only show. The bonus content, editors cut here that we'll do later. Anyway, well, no, man, that, and I hear you. I mean, like the AR VR stuff is very sort of new and exciting, and that'll be interesting to see where that all goes. Yeah. And
the technology's there, right? So, so we're doing, so some of the stuff we're doing now is improving the headphone experience will matter. And then you combine that with head tracking, and then you put the other stuff, it is going to come through. I mean, now we've been focused pretty heavily on, how do you improve the headphone experience? And I think that's going to be a big part of it. Improving that headphone experience really goes across everything, right? So including podcasts, right? So if you can actually get that three-dimensional thing, and I mean, can you imagine, right? You're doing even like a news show, right? So, it's like on site, you're coming back and you can actually start to bring people into, the on the street parts, and the sounds are really kind of bringing people there. So not even just scripted fiction, but I think, some live stuff will benefit from that. And frankly, I think you can benefit from it all in general, even as something like, our discussion here, you can bring in other sounds, right? You can, separate us out so that, as your eyes are coming back and forth. And so because a lot of this is happening in the post-production side, it gives you some real abilities to start to play with some things.
So one of the cool things that I like to do with this podcast is to humanize the arts, right? I mean, artists and the people that work in the arts, I mean, a lot of times they're these, mysterious creatures. It's hard a lot of people out there may never have met an artist, or maybe there's some young kid out there who's, wanting to, think about getting into sound design or music, the music business, or gaming or whatever. And so the opportunity to hear from Ellis Reid from Dolby Laboratories is an exciting one, right? Because how else would they meet you otherwise, right? I mean, and so here they are, they're listening in. And so I want to take this opportunity, because I'm sure that there are people out there going like, wow, man, Ellis has got a killer job at a killer company. How the hell did he land that gig?
It's fun. I'll tell you that.
Right? How do I get that job? Right. So anyway, I want to go back. I want to go way back, because, well, can't go that far back because you're not that old, but like,
I'm not that old, man.
I don't know. So we'll just go back a little bit, childhood genius and whatnot. But I mean, like, unpack your journey a little bit here, because like, how does one end up, at Dolby Labs? And let's be clear. Let's start with clarifying your role, because I know, from our past conversations, right, you're responsible for building sort of creator communities or communities of creators around your tech. So you're in the evangelizing business, simply put.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in brand marketing, right? So I do brand marketing, which is really about reaching out, taking, what we do and bringing it out and taking that to people so they understand what our brand means. And really, as I said, a lot of people don't know what Dolby is and what Dolby does, right? They remember, folks that are, slightly older remember, the little button on their cassette tape, the little switch, and it's like, oh, you just flip it one way, it's got a little bit quiet the other way. But Dolby is doing so much more, and there's so many experiences we enable. So how do I get to here? It's funny. Because, like I said, I went to MIT, but then I was like, there's people that are going to be better engineers than I am. So I'm going to find something. And then I shifted over into marketing, went back to school, did a few things, and slowly kind of worked my way across creating new platforms And particularly, I was working in the broadband world, right? So, I mean, what we take for granted, right? Gig speeds and things has been, I worked with a lot of that to bring that to market. And then we started to look at how do you use it. And when I had a chance to come to Dolby, I'll be, honest, 9 years ago, I'm like, I don't want to go to Dolby. That's such a stodgy company. It's like they've got nothing. And I'm glad I did, because it's a place full of creatives, right? So, we look for people like, for me, I'm not a musician, but I love music, right? I'm forever in hearing live music and forever checking out what other artists are doing. So, so ideally, how did I get here? I'm technical. And so I tend to work on a lot of the technical stuff, but there's folks that are, English majors and things like that have come to it because we all want to tell that story, right? So getting to Dolby now, as we go out, we still hire lots of engineers. I mean, our headquarters, when we finally get to go back in it, it has over 100 labs in the building. Right. So, I mean, the lab part of Dolby Lab is real.
Wow.
Right?
That's
so
real. That's
It's seriously real.
By the way,
right?
based on that, I'm going to suggest something that will never happen, which is a name change. I think, from Dolby Labs to Lab Dolby. Like, you guys are 100 labs. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's more than that. And you get in the building and there are all these different things, right? So even like neuroscience, right? So you'll see where, like, when they were testing Dolby Vision, actually they were, hooking up to people's brains to figure out how they reacted. And actually the interesting thing about it was, when people would actually see fire on a TV screen delivered this way, their reaction on their skin, like hairs would raise, like, like they were actually, being addressing a real fire. So that's
they started dropping and rolling. Is that what?
Not quite that
they
bad.
Stopped,
but,
dropped, and rolled.
They were having that reaction. So and that's kind of the coolest part. So when I look at where Dolby's going to go, we are unique in that we've always worked with the artists and the people delivering it and the people playing it back, and quite frankly, the market's been interesting. Because you got people like Netflix who typically in the delivery portion, and now they're one of the biggest content creators in the world, right? You work with companies like that, and you work with the creatives that they work with, and that's what gets exciting. So, in fact, I've just been interviewing interns and things, and telling them, we want people that are curious, right? We want people that are thinking about what that next generation of experience is going to be, and who can understand for movies and TV and podcasts and everything, how we create that and how you get that message across. Because you really do want to build this community, because ultimately, right now we definitely do really well in the professional side, but everybody's a creator, right? So everyone wants to create, they do their own things. And so as we start to look at the ability to capture Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision moves into the hands of the average person, that's going to blow up even more, right? So everyone gets to do that work. But right now we want to just make sure that I use the word democratize this. How do you get into more and more people's hands? Because when you first started, I've got a Dolby Atmos system that I would travel around with, and I think the speakers were $2,000. All total, it was probably $4,000 worth of gear. And I'd set it up and it would sound amazing. But not everybody's going to buy that. But a $300 soundbar, or the Echo Studio, which you can play Dolby Atmos music on, that was $199. So it's really started to come down to that point where the average person can get it in their home, and you don't need to be a rich LA guy like you. You can be, a poor engineer, ex-engineer like me, struggling, in the Bay Area, and have this.
By the way, for the record, I make all my money selling drugs to the celebrities. Okay, so I'm just going to confess right now. I'm just going to confess it right now, so everyone knows. People wonder where he gets his money. I'm not going to name my clients.
All right, well, good.
But pretty much, if you've ever seen the cover of Us magazine, well. But in that case, you can definitely afford a really good system, but you don't have to be that, right? You don't have to be a drug dealer with stars, yes,
to get that, but also even getting for the creators, bringing it down the other side, right? So I've been working with, and you and I have talked about this, right? So Pro Tools Avid's been one of my best partners. I love working with Avid, but even working with Avid has been cool. Like Avid brought out Avid Play. And so Avid Play, a independent artist, independent musician, can actually release their Dolby Atmos music. And I think it's like $49 a year for them to be able to do that. And they keep all their royalties. So, I mean, so we're doing that, but, we've got other companies, Blackmagic, we've been working with them, right? So their low end system is like $300 to get started. So as we start to work with the companies that are out there and all the different audio systems that people are doing, and even bringing the visual systems down, that's kind of the next challenge I'm seeing, is how do we bring that down and getting creators there. Love the fact that, we're really going to start to work and try to bring some students on board and doing a lot of training there. That's where it's going to come from, right? I mean, frankly, I think you said it earlier, right? The next big star could be sitting in their bedroom right now, mixing on some headphones. Want to get that. And want to
man. Did you know if, speaking of the next big star making music in their bedroom, I caught the Apple doc the other day about Billie Eilish, right? And great doc, by the way, if you check it out. But the sound in that was fantastic as well. I wonder if they used Atmos for that. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I gotta check that part out, because I think that the documentary was actually available in Vision and Atmos, but and that's what I don't know for sure. I should have probably checked beforehand to see if her last release came out that way. But a lot of these, like I said, day and date releases are coming out in stereo and in Atmos, Dolby Atmos. And one of the things that's actually kind of cool, especially in music, is, music publishing is been around for a long time, and stereo kicked in, right? So if you listen to a lot of the Beatles stuff, they actually did that in mono, right? A lot of their original stuff was mono. It wasn't even stereo. And it was kind of late 60s. You started doing stereo, started to kick in. And then there's really not been a lot of significant changes in music since stereo kicked in the late 60s. So this is, this is a real game changer. And people like Warner Music Group, Universal Music Group, looking at their catalogs, looking at their artists, and bringing them to fore. So that's why it's been it's been a busy year.
Well, good for you, man, and good for Dolby. I mean, so many companies struggled in 2020. Some companies thrived. Clearly, Dolby is thriving.
It's been a good year. I mean, everyone had the challenges, right? So, man, let's face it, staying in touch with people and being closer to people is something that has been a challenge, and a lot of people have gone to. And so knowing that entertainment is a big part of it, and people do have an emotional connection to their entertainment, so that does feel good, because as you start to bring that across, it does give people a way of kind of sitting in and checking out things and really starting to feel that, and they can share those experiences with their friends, even though they might not be together. Yeah, and we're hoping even once things change up and we all get shots in the arms, that people will still be watching content.
Indeed, they will, but they are caged animals. They're. I mean, the parties are going to be off the charts.
I'm working out daily now. I'm getting ready. Yeah, I'm like, I got my whole exercise and diet program, so that when that happens, I'm going to be right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to put in the training so that you can finish the race and have fun in the process. Well, man, that's exciting, Ellis. I'm so generous for your time. I mean, I'm so grateful for your time. You've been so generous with it. And Dolby is one of those brands, one of those companies that we all just love. I mean, for people who may not have been paying attention, where should people go to discover Dolby, discover Atmos? Explain where we should be looking.
Our website is a good spot to start. So just Dolby.com. Just put in Dolby.com, and when you get there, there's some ways that you can actually see Vision and Atmos. You can experience them. So there's also Experience Finder, which will tell you where individual types of experiences can be had. So that's where I would direct people, up front.
Well, I will tell you, let me help you out here for a minute, because, in preparation for our conversations, I was on the Dolby site myself. And, listen, man, I mean, you can tell the difference with Atmos just on the website, because, you have some of those examples of like, turn it on, turn it off, whatever. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, it's so good that I can literally tell a difference on a damn website. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And that's been the challenge, right? So, I mean, one thing was super exciting in the beginning. In September, we were all the in-person stuff, right? Normally, I would have been in Amsterdam for a show called IBC. couldn't go, right? I would have had gone to Vegas for a show called NAB, which is where all of this was. And instead we did our own event and we, and opened it up to the industry, and we did the whole thing. You could experience it in Vision and Atmos, and the people who did, like, they could bring it in, they could run it through their Apple TV and actually play it on their, their Dolby Vision TV and listen to it on their Dolby Vision sound system. So it's coming, right? It's coming where people are going to be able to get that at home. And my own personal remit is to, get more people to create in it, and that includes you. And so we will have another conversation.
More to come. All right.
How to get that to happen, man.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then we'll talk the employee discount, but we're going to start with getting you up to speed first, and then we'll have other questions.
And we will hold you accountable because, of course, this is on tape. This is public record now, and soon will be. So all the listeners out there, you heard it here first. Ellis Reid, I'm so grateful for your time, my friend. Thank you for coming to represent Dolby and all the great stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, Scott, man, it's great. And, just for your listeners' hands, I knew Scott when he was an impressionable. All right, I'm done. I'm not going to say another word.
No. That's for the after hours adult only.
All right, sorry.
Extra bonus content.
I didn't mean to do that. So, message
sometimes
me.
You just have to.
Truth, right?
Sometimes I have to play censor. It's a stressful gig over here sometimes. Well, Ellis Reid, my friend, again, you are a gentleman and literally a scholar. You MIT Smarty Pants alum, and we're better off for having you here, my friend. Thanks so much for taking the time.
No, man, Scott, it's a pleasure. We'll talk soon. All right.
Cheers. Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to like this episode, write a review, and share with your friends on social. And if you haven't already done so, please press the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at NotRealArtWorld.